everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, I will be doing a review of every LEGO Marvel mech armor set that I own. I won't be including the 2020 Spider-Man, the 2021 Spider-Man vs. Green Goblin, no, Spider-Man vs. Doc Ock, or the 2022 Spider-Man vs. Green Goblin, because I don't own those sets. And I also won't be including the 2020 Venom mech armor for Spider-Man Jet. I'll do a separate video on that. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into the review. So starting off with the original mech that was first released when they started doing this lineup, it's the Iron Man mech. Sorry about the camera angle, it's sort of bad. I'll pick it up real quick. As of play features, it's like a 5+ set. It's gonna have a few play features. Starting off with the minifig. This was the older mold for Iron Man's helmet, where you could not flip up the mask. So yeah, I don't know what mark armor this would be. Someone could tell me in the comments. For his accessories, he had the little blast pieces, I think they're called, where you could press on the side of them, boom, they'd launch. As you clearly saw in my example there. Moving on to the mech armor itself, I'm trying to better. Boom. Yep. With the mech armor itself, it's an interesting design. They changed up the design for every generation of mech armors that they did, starting from the bottom up. We have some nice sticker detail on the foot. The overall build process will take you like 10-15 minutes. Not too difficult. Again, it's like a 5+ set. It's meant for children. I like the way they built out the legs. It has very good posability, which they really only had this first, and then I guess technically the second wave that came out next year, in 2021. The arms are pretty simple of a build. They only have 4 fingers, which I didn't expect first getting it. I thought they might be able to put more detail into it. And I don't know if the piece existed back then, where it was the 1x2 tile plates, whichever one, and it was modified to have the little Technic axle, I think it would be, the little wheel axles, where it was just the 1x2 rather than the 2x2 that had them sticking out of both sides. I don't know if they had the piece back then, but I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, the shoulders, more stickers, and this is true for both sides. It's a very symmetrical build other than the cannon up top. Yeah, the chest design, they kept this piece throughout every iteration of the mech armor that they have done. Yeah, they've kept the same piece even up to this current year's wave, 2025. Up here at the cannon, it's a simple design. It's a few Technic pieces, which might be the only difficult part of the build. It tripped me up for like 5 seconds because I'm trying to figure out how to orient all the pieces. It has a cool play feature where if you press on the back, let me show you guys. It has a cool feature where if you press on the cannon on the back, I'll detach it just to show you. If you press on it, yep, boom, scattered tiles everywhere. Yeah, not too shabby of a build. Pretty good for its generation. And the Iron Man fig itself is pretty detailed. That's the first one. Moving on to Thanos. Moving on to Thanos here, we're going to start off with the minifig. Again, it's pretty detailed, what you're going to see a lot of in the initial waves. As of recent, LEGO has been, I guess, cutting costs and not putting as much printing on their minifigs. This is back when it was still normal to get full leg printing on every minifig. They still very much detail some figures in the more expensive sets usually. But yeah, this was more detailed because it was back when when it was less expensive to put so much printing on a minifig. But yeah, I don't know the origin of this piece, but it is definitely not Marvel. It might be something like Nexo Knights, which, old theme. I think it was around 2015 is when it retired. I don't really know. Moving on to the build itself of the mech. I am not a huge fan of this design. In my opinion, the main issue is the gauntlet itself, which is a lot of people's issues when they first get this set. It's too bulky. The proportions do not scale well with the mech. It's hard to pose because of how the fingers are designed, and yeah. What is cool though is that because the stones are more round, it gives a more comic like build look. I don't know, I can't speak right now. Because in the comics, the stones are just these little round, well, shiny rocks. Meanwhile, in the MCU, they're usually less, I don't know what the terminology would be. This had only one sticker design, but it was repeated on the bicep and thigh of the mech. So I guess technically it only had 4 stickers. Yes, it did only have 4 stickers. I'm stupid. Nice printing on the chest of it. What I'm also not a fan of is the lower leg is too bulky compared to the rest of the lower body. It looks like this dude only trains calves, right? The hand design is the same as Iron Man, except this time rather than... So they did have the piece back then. So why did they... I'm gonna crash out. As you can see, which I just ranted about, with the Iron Man mech, they have the... If I can get it off here. They did, in fact, at the time, have the 1x2 modified plate with the wheel axle, which they could have easily done for Iron Man's mech, but rather than doing that, they did a more rushed design, I guess the word would be, which in turn made it look not very cool or good. I don't know. Yeah. Overall, it's just okay. I wouldn't recommend it being your first choice, but if you're a collector like me that wants to get all the sets from a certain year, which I'm doing right now with 2024, go for it. It's kind of poseable. Another thing I forgot to mention, these cheese slopes that they put on the inside of the legs, goodness, don't allow for much posability with the legs, but other than that, it's pretty poseable. Yeah. On to 2021. So the first mech of 2021, I guess not technically the first since they all released at the same time in January, I'm pretty sure, is Thor. The minifig is just alright. Compared to Thor minifigs that we get nowadays, it's not as detailed. You can see what I mentioned with Thanos is Thanos had leg printing, which was way more common back then because it wasn't as expensive to print so much on the minifig, which they have stopped doing with 2021. Yeah, it's your average Thor minifig that you would get in a set like this, 5+ set, meant for kids. Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to have the big old cloth cape or, as of recent, rubber cape. Goodness, I can't talk. Yeah, you would only, and I guess it would be hard to store it, considering how there would not be enough room if he had the cape on for him to actually fit into the mech. The build itself, however, is leagues better than the minifig should have been, right? A detail I like that they incorporated with this series of mech, other than the Spider-Man versus Doc Ock, which I don't own, so I can't really explain it. What they've done with this wave is in every... Sorry, I just got a notification. on every mech, there's a little spot to store their accessory. In this case, Mjolnir for Thor. I have a feeling I got a little unlucky when I ordered these off eBay because the joints are really loose, which allows him to, every time I try to pose him, crunch and fall over. I'd apply some pressure there, but you get the point. It's hard to get him to actually pose. A nice detail that they included was that, see what I mean? I'm barely even... A nice detail that they added here was they actually put his cape on the mech itself with these windshield sort of pieces. You see this in the 2022 Iron Man, which I'll do here in a sec. Yeah. Looking at the build for the bigger Mjolnir, it's what you expect. This is where, other than the hips, this is where all the stickers go. What I'm not too huge a fan of was that because of the way it's built, one side is tiled with a sticker and the other side is studded. I think they could have, just with some different building techniques, avoided that. Heck, even if it meant including more pieces at the cost of some of the stickers, I feel like that would have been more than okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, I'm not too certain, but I'm pretty sure this is the single mech with the most stickers on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, at least 9 stickers that I'm seeing right now. What I do like, however, that they didn't include in other mechs was that each hand has a Technic pin holder, which is the mechanism used to attach Mjolnir. So you can have him hold Mjolnir in either hand that you want. Yeah, that was Thor. Here with the next mech of 2021 is Captain America. I'm pretty sure this was the first mech to not have any stickers that I am aware of. If there was something that would contradict that with the battle sets, I'm not aware of that. But, yeah, another sign of the, well, another effect of the increased cost for printing is that you see, unlike most figures, Cap does not have the dual-molded legs, where the bottom half would be red to represent something like the boots of Cap. Just like what they did with Thor, on the leg of the mech, you can store Cap's shield, which it's the basic Captain America shield. It's the same mold that you would get in any other set. The mech itself is very basic. The only thing stopping you from making this into something like Blue Beetle, if you're into DC, would be something like removing the chest piece and swapping out some of the colors. There are no defining details that would make it look like Captain America. If you were to just swap out this one piece, you could say, oh, this could be, of course, in the moment, I can't think of any characters. Oh, this could be a different mech for Spider-Man since he has the same colors. You get my point. Yeah. This shield piece, I'm pretty sure, is what's used. It's not the same print, but this piece is the same one that was used in the Captain America buildable figures. Both the Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers. Like always, it's your basic mech. It's a very plain mech is what I'm trying to get at here. The only real feature, I guess, would be the fact that you can store his shield on the back of the leg, and the fact that his shield, the shield for the mech, comes off of the hand. However, my critiques with this set come when you realize you can't put it on whichever hand you want without modifying the build. Unlike what they did with Thor, only one hand can actually be attached to the shield itself. Unless, of course, you want to modify the build, that being the hand, to take off this round plate, and then boom, you can. But I'm not one to modify your builds. Modify builds. If you want to do that, go for it. I would not recommend it, though, as a perfectionist myself. Yeah, moving on to the next one. Here we have Miles Morales, again, 2021. The fig itself, has more detail than the other ones did. This minifig, goodness, I got a bubble in my throat. This minifig actually has any sort of leg detail, that being dual printed legs. I guess that's supposed to be a nod to the movies where he wears gray shorts over the rest of his suit that he spray painted black. If you haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, go watch it, please. His accessory is, I guess technically his accessory is this little connector piece that you can slide the web into, which is gigantic, but it's really just meant for the mech itself. Because Miles doesn't necessarily have any weapons, I guess, other than his web shooters, which they have not yet made into a piece, and I don't expect them to because it'd be way too small, because he doesn't have one. There's just a storage for this web handcuff sort of piece that they've used in multiple different Spider-Man sets. If you've seen my review of the Daily Bugle, they use this piece there. Yeah. Or did they? I'm pretty sure they did. I don't know. What is cool about this is that if you wanted to, you could take the web from Miles while he's, in the mech, and you could slot it into the hand of his mech, which there's a clip for. Again, like what happened with Cap, you cannot do this with both hands, which is a real bummer. There is a lot of web details around the mech, which I guess is a solid. On the left hand, there's whatever you would want to call this, shield, I guess. Patches of web on either side of the calf, and then on the back, there are these sort of, I don't even know what they would be called, but they've got webs, which is awesome. Yeah, unlike Cap, this one, you can tell who it is if you were to take off the printed piece. You'd be like, oh, hey, that's Miles Morales. Unlike Captain America, where the only defining feature that he has is the printed piece on his torso and somewhat the colors of the mech. Yeah, not too much to say about this one. It's the last set of 2021 that I own. Yeah, moving on to 2022. Here we have the 2022 Black Panther mech. What they did for all of these 2022 mechs, they changed the build for the legs to where they removed the swivel joint at the hip, and they put two modified 1x2 tiles that have ball joints at the end to attach the legs, which, one, it makes it non-symmetrical, which is personally the biggest pet peeve of mine with these mechs, unless it's like putting an overabundance of weapons on one side. And it also, too, takes away from the posability, because while for the right leg, you have no problem putting it, forward, you have to, the best you can do with the left leg is have it pointing that way to the side. It also removes what you could do with the past two waves, which was, of course, swivel the hip joint. But all that aside, the minifig is actually pretty good. Like you would expect, it's Black Panther. He is, as of accessories, I guess, very detailed. He comes with the Wolverine claw piece, which Wolverine is another mech in this wave, but we'll get into that here in a sec. I don't understand why they would give him this piece, since really he didn't have claws like Wolverine had. He had the little claw, like in the movie, he had claws coming out of the tips of his fingers on his suit. But I don't think they would need to include a piece like this for a detail like that. That, for the most part, kind of went unnoticed, in my opinion. If you want to, you can swap out the head for T'Challa. You can swap it out to the Black Panther suit head, which is how I usually keep it. And I have the head sitting behind the mech where no one can see it, which is another problem I have with this. There is nowhere to store the other head if you have the main figure inside of the mech. Of course, if you wanted to, you could have T'Challa holding the head of the suit. But because of the way the suit is designed in the movie, that being nanotech, I know, ew, nanotech, MCU, kind of trash now. But because of the way the suit is designed, it kind of ruins the continuity of it. But that's just my personal peeve. The mech itself is detailed, I guess. A feature that they added here was that he has some little type of visor glass on the chest piece, which I guess is cool. He has the same problem as Thanos had, where his hands are just completely out of proportion. And again, the same thing they had with Iron Man, the original Iron Man. They have the 2x2 piece with wheel axle sticking out of both sides, rather than just using the piece that was a 1x2 with only the one wheel axle, and they could have put just a regular black 1x2. I get if they didn't have that piece in that color for Iron Man, since the base of his hands were gray, light gray. But as we saw with Thanos, they do have that piece in black, which they could have used on his hands. Why do you do this, Lego? But yeah, that's just my personal pet peeve. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. Yeah. Here we have the Iron Man mech of 2022. Just right off the bat, this minifig, I'm not a fan of it. I get that it's probably supposed to be designed after the Mark III. It was either Mark III or Mark IV that has this main yellow base. I'm not a fan of it. The color palette, I feel there's way too much yellow. I don't really like the color yellow. But an upside is that this is one of the only figures of this wave. I'm pretty sure this is the only figure of this wave, other than Spider-Man and Green Goblin, to have leg printing. He even has printing on the front of his feet, which is a nice little detail that they included. Is also, I'm pretty sure, one of the last mechs with stickers, only having 3 this time. Again, if Green Goblin and Spider-Man had that, I wouldn't know, because I don't own the set. I like the mech other than the color palette, which I mentioned with the figure itself. Both hands have some type of, I guess, weapon. It's a shield. If you remember, this is the same piece that they used for the Thor mech cape. It can swivel, sort of, to a degree. And the right hand has a cannon under his hand. That's what you're going to see with the 2025 Iron Man mech as well. Why did they make so many Iron Man mechs? I don't know. It's really annoying when we could be getting other stuff. Anyway, again, just like what they did with Black Panther, the crotch build is just bad. It's not as bad as Black Panther's was, because the inside plate on the thigh piece, it's just a 1x2. It's not modified or anything, like they did with T'Challa, which they had a 1x1 and a curved 1x2. Other than that, there's really nothing I have to say about this mech. It's basic and boring. Yeah, on to the next one. Here we have the Wolverine mech. I know, Wolverine, awesome. It's not bad, necessarily, of a minifig. I guess I really shouldn't be complaining all that much, since it is at the time of release, it was the first X-Men set that we had gotten in, like, I think it would be 8 years? Goodness. I might be wrong on that, but I remember people were really excited about this to get another Wolverine. And I'm pretty sure the next X-Men we would get would either be Storm, Beast, or Wolverine from the 2023 CMF, or the Wolverine buildable figure from 2023 as well. Release dates get kind of mixed up when it's not current year. Yeah. The build itself, it's kind of basic. The main feature is that it has these really long Ninjago sword pieces for the claws. These pieces were used as swords for the Ninjago mechs, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. There's really not much to talk about this mech, other than the fact that it's one of the only mechs that has more printing than it does stickers. It has 0 stickers, as a matter of fact, and only printing. Yeah. What I'm not a fan of is that if you wanted to, there's nowhere to put the claws. But again, I don't feel like they would want to put something like that in a 5, maybe 6+ set. It's not really their fault that they would have had to increase the budget with increased parts to bulk out, say, the back to where you could actually store pieces. Yeah. He actually has he has 2 face prints, one of which having the white goggles that they use for a lot of the Batman minifigs, for his helmet. On the other side is just Logan's face, which I don't think looks very good under the mask. I think it looks more accurate with the white eye, since that's how he's always depicted in the media. But yeah, there's really not a lot to talk about. Moving on to 2023. Before we resume the video, this is the halfway point of the review. I just wanted to remind you all, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It's completely free and it helps out the channel a ton. It allows me to make more videos like this one. LEGO reviews is my passion and hobby, so support is a great way to be able to get more of this content out. Yeah, sorry. I hate begging for subscribers, but if you wouldn't mind, just it's the little red button down below, or I guess white now. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm back. I know in the video it's gonna look like no time at all has passed. It's been a couple hours. Ran into a lot of technical difficulties. That's just how it is trying to record videos on a phone. Now I actually am at 2023. What you're going to notice for 2023 going onwards is, rather than using the ball joint pieces and comprising each limb of 3 segments, that being the hand and or foot, calf and or forearm, and then thigh and or bicep/shoulder, it's all just now, for the upper body, it's just one solid piece, and for the legs, it's the foot and the leg unit itself. That's it's a dual-edged sword. On one hand, it's more, what would the word be? It's more stable. You can actually get it into poses without it falling over more frequently, but it also takes away from some of that posability without you being able to bend the knees or the elbows, or in this case, the wrist as well. This is the Hulk mech. Well, I really am not a big fan of this mech, other than the sort of some design elements in the build, like how they really bulked it out for the character. I'm not a huge fan of this. Like, I don't like the fact that Hulk is a minifig in general in any LEGO sets. I think that they need to not make him a minifig in any LEGO sets, period, no matter what set it is. I don't care if it's 4+. He does not need to be a minifig. That's just, it's not accurate to the character, and it really pisses me off. Yeah. But, like, critiques aside, the build itself is okay. His accessory, he only gets an accessory for the mech, which is this random piece of some he would find out of a construction site, pillar. Yeah, it's a basic design, but I like it, even though it's such a basic design. Like I mentioned a second ago, they bulked out the legs more than any other mech we have gotten in this style, which I think is a nice detail to the Hulk. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. It's a nice print on the torso with the gamma radiation symbol, which is how Bruce Banner turns into Hulk with gamma radiation and stuff. I think that's cool. Yeah, not not too much necessarily to say about it. On to the next one. We have the second set in this lineup of mechs for 2023. It's Thanos again. There's ups and downs to the second Thanos mech. On one hand, compared to the original, the proportions are not terrible. It's a more endgame-ish design, whereas the other one was just cladded out in armor. This one looks more like endgame, if that makes sense. I don't exactly know how to explain it more than that. The figure itself, it's a basic Thanos figure. You're gonna see just these no leg printing figures, very little effort figures throughout the rest of this video, because that's just what LEGO has chose to put into these sets, is low effort printing, and in this case a really low effort build. Like I said, there's ups and downs. On one hand, this is one of the only ways, to my knowledge, to get not only the Infinity Gauntlet in a set, but all 6 Infinity Stones, which is a plus. However, what I'm not a fan of is the fact that this entire left arm, is one solid piece, not including the wrist. Now, this would normally be okay if they could have used the 1x2 tile, that rather than having the connector point out to the side, you could have it point out down the middle, right? That would make it so, you know, how am I supposed to have this? I don't know. I'll fix it here in a sec. You could have had it, if they had used the other piece, to where you could actually get him into some poses that looked good, other than just having his fist up. But because the way they chose to design that arm, you can only really have him in one pose and have him still look good, which is very annoying. For being a kid's set, there's only really one pose. I do like, though, that they gave him his sword. Like I said, here, it's a dual-edged sword. It's cool, but it's, design-wise, it's not great. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. Here we move on to Rocket Raccoon. This is one of my favorite sets in the line. It's right behind Ghost Rider, which we'll do next. It's one of the better sets. It's better than Thanos, and it's better than Hulk. One, because it's way more detailed. Mainly just because of this huge unit of a turret on his arm. But we also get a minifig that makes sense to not have leg printing. While some people may not agree, I feel like it's okay if a minifig doesn't have leg printing if it uses these short legs. And they also put more detail into the torso, giving him different colored arms than the torso itself. Yeah. He also has a more detailed head, a different head mold since he's not the normal minifig. A feature that this has that only some of the older sets had was that you can store his weapon on the mech without him having to just, like, put it aside on the ground. Critiques on this set, though, the tail segment, which is nice that they included that. They definitely didn't have to. It falls off way too easily. It's essentially a one-stud connection to one-stud connection. The tail unit itself is fairly stable because it has a bar piece going through it, which is a technique that a lot of builders use. They use technical axles going through a build to more stabilize it. Sorry, I just had to do that real quick. But when it's a 1x1 stud connection to 1x1 stud connection, it's really easy to just break off. And considering how small the mech is, it's a lot of detail focused onto a not so positive output. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the right words for this. This big part of the mech drags the entire mech itself down a lot because it's so small. It's only 98 pieces, if I remember correctly. I also got kind of unlucky when I got this set from, I think I picked it up from Target. There was a giant scratch, if the camera will pick it up, yep. There's a giant scratch across the torso and I just never bothered to pick up another set. I felt like it was a waste of money to swap out a piece that I could, for the most part, hide by just having him look sideways on one of my shelves in an angle that hides the scratch itself. Yeah, not too bad, but again, that tail is the main turnoff. However, I do really like this turret. I'm not going to fire it because studs are going to go flying across my room, but yeah, it's cool. Moving on to the next one. Moving on to the Ghost Rider mech, which is the final mech of 2023. Unlike the previous 2 years, they didn't do a versus set, so it is the 3 base mechs and a bigger mech set that comes with a larger build, I guess you would say, that being his bike. The minifig itself, it's a Ghost Rider fig. I think it would have benefited from getting the same pants as we got from Hawkeye and Black Widow in the Avengers Modular Tower, the Modular Avengers Tower, however you want to word it. I think he could have definitely benefited from that, but otherwise, I'm not really even complaining because it is a dual molded head sculpt. That's awesome to see in a minifig, especially for a character like Ghost Rider, who's just like that, if you catch my hint. Yeah. The build for the mech itself, it's nothing necessarily special. The only eye-catching details are the 1x1 spiked studs that are also used on the chain. I think it would have been cool if we got some fire details on the chain. They could have incorporated, if you've seen my Daily Bugle review, the pieces that they use for Starfire's accessories, not Starfire, whatever her name is, I don't know. I think it could have benefited from that with the chain and on the mech itself, but I digress. The build for the bike, though, tells a way different story. This is not necessarily just a mech bike for a mech. It looks just like an upscaled version of the classic bike that Ghost Rider uses. Depending on which version of Ghost Rider you grew up with or read the comics of, you might be familiar with him having a hot rod car. But yeah, I think that would have definitely increased the price by $30 at least if they were to do a car for the mech. And plus, it would just be a very impractical build, right? It's what you would get with a upscaled Ghost Rider bike. I think they could have done the exact same build if they were going to do a Ghost Rider buildable figure. They could recycle this build, possibly upscale it. I don't know what the exact scale would be to a buildable figure. But yeah, I think there's definitely room to reuse this build. The only real complaint I have is that these backfire pieces for the tailpipes are kind of loose, and these Technics pins kind of ruin the vibe of the bike. It contrasts way too much with the rest of the bike, with just these random hints of blue from a gray and orange and black model. But other than that, it's not necessarily even that bad. It's probably one of the better sets you would get with this new generation of mechs, that being the ones with the Ninjago pieces as the limbs. Yeah, that's all I have to say for 2023. Moving on to 2024, the first mech we're going to be going over, stand up, Miles, he's just not going to stand up, is the Venom mech. This is the first basic mech set that we see that comes with 2 minifigs. You might be wondering, Comrade, what does base mech set mean? It's basically like how we saw Ghost Rider. He was $35 with the mech and a lot bigger of a build. But these base mech sets that, as of recent, cost, I think, $18. I think it's like $17.99. These base ones, you can just pick them up. They have like 150 pieces in the tiny box. You get what I'm saying. This is the first one that has 2 minifigs. Those 2 minifigs being the absolute laziest ones they could have given us. I think what would have been far better is, since it's such a cheap set, I feel like Venom gets a pass here. They haven't given us a new Venom fig since the line came out back in 2012. The first Venom figure we got, I think, was in 2013, 2014. In that one set, if you know what I'm talking about. But Miles is the main figure that I'm upset about. We could have easily reused the figure from the 2021 mech that had dual molded pants. I think that would have been way cooler. Yeah. But with a cheap set, I understand why they didn't. They spent most of the budget on the build. But I think it would have been far, far, far better if we got at least dual molded legs. That being said, he comes with a nice array of web accessories. Goodness, I cannot talk. That being one of these Power Blast pieces that I showed you earlier with Iron Man. You press on it, fires, usually. Never wants to actually do it on camera. And then this web piece that I think it had just came out when this set released back in January 2024. I'm not a fan of this piece. The main problem I have with it is that while it's posable, it does not hold its shape. It immediately flaps back. When you have it in a certain pose for a long time, being held by clips and bars, it tends to take that shape. Another problem I have is that because it's more of an elastic type plastic, the handholds themselves actually break or sort of wear down sort of easily. If I can get the camera to focus. Come on, camera. You got it. Yeah, if you sort of see here, there's marks from where I had Miles holding on to it, where it sort of breaks down and imprints. I'm not a fan of that. I think they could have easily used the cloth and pure hard plastic piece that they used in the Daily Bugle. Keep on mentioning that set, but I think they could have easily used that. The Venom build itself is nothing special at all. I like that they put bar pieces for the web on each limb for the upper body, both arms, and on the back. This back piece uses a swivel bar, which is nice to see. You can have it in more poses, I guess. But the build itself is kind of basic. The only real things that stand out is, one, the Prince emblem on the chest, which is the defining feature for most mechs. What makes them recognizable as a mech itself. And these symbiote pieces that come out of the arms. But other than that, there's nothing at all special about this. Strip away these pieces, and you could have done another Ghost Rider mech with the just pure black. Just switch out a few pieces. Boom, it's Ghost Rider. Take the claws out for the normal hands. Take out these Venom pieces. Switch out the chest emblem. Switch out a few pieces for orange. And boom, it's Ghost Rider. Yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of the design itself. However, the concept is pretty cool. Moving on to the War Machine mech, which is the final mech of 2024. What they did, sorry, I'm yapping, but what they did with 2024 onwards is they only released 2 mechs per wave. I'm not a fan of that at all. I thought it was way better when they would release 3 base mech sets and then 1 set that was like $20 more expensive but had way more build. The Spider-Man versus Green Goblin in 2022, the Spider-Man versus Doc Ock in 2021, the Venom mech versus Spider-Man Jet in 2020, and the Ghost Rider mech in 2023. But onward from that, they just did 2 base mech sets, not even 3, which I feel like would have been more acceptable. The minifig for... Sorry, this is War Machine, if I didn't mention that. The minifig for War Machine, while it's very detailed and printed, it has the complete wrong color scheme. War Machine is supposed to be black and dark gray. This is a silver sort of metallic color and light gray for the arms. I think the arms look really out of place here. I think they could have easily been the same color as the torso, legs, and helmet. But I digress. What I do like about this minifig, however, was unlike the previous 2 Iron Man mechs, the faceplate can lift up. What they don't have that they had for the Iron Man minifig was the minifig, you could see the interface that you can see in the movies when you get close-up shots while he's in the suit. It had like all the details of the interface. They didn't have that here. I think they could have easily done that since they did. I'm pretty sure they did that with the foil pack from the magazines with the 2022 War Machine. That overall was just a better minifig. And I think they could have easily taken off the back cannons, put that minifig in here, and called it a day. It would even be acceptable for it to not have the liftable faceplate if it was just more accurate. But along with the minifig, we have the mech. Now, the design itself is cool, but the color palette is what really gets me going. Pause. It follows the same color palette as the War Machine minifig had. It's a silver metallic sort of gray and a light gray. Could have easily replaced this light gray with this silver and put the silver, have it as black, right? It's very detailed though. As you can see, it has the sort of wire leading up to the shoulder cannon, 2 wrist cannons, a bulkier sort of build, not quite as bulky as what they had with Hulk, but still, extra greebling for the inner shoulders for where you put the War Machine minifig in, and then on the back, they gave you a little backpack build that held more studs that you put into the cannon. What I'm not a huge fan of is that they use the 1x1 flat studs, I guess tiles, rather than the normal studded studs that have the connector on them. It makes it so where when you take off the backpack, one wrong move and all these dump out all over your desk. Not a huge fan of that. I think it would have been far better if they did what they did with Rocket and gave him studs for his ammunition. But yeah, still, it's not necessarily a bad mech, it's just not my favorite. Moving on here to the Spider-Man mech. This is the latest Spider-Man mech. Both of the mechs in this set are repeats of previous mechs. With the minifigs, what is nice here is that this is our very first Anti-Venom minifig. We'll clap it up for LEGO. They gave us a new character for one of these mechs. What I'm not happy about is the execution of this. While it has a nice torso print and a head print, no leg printing. I'm gonna crash out. This could have easily just had like a few wrinkles. It didn't even have to be pure black. It could have been sort of wrinkles, I guess, in gray. Like if you look up close what they did with the like ab muscles on this, they could have easily just done that on the suit. It's so annoying how little effort they put into new characters. And it's a Spider-Man minifig. It's the exact same as the one we've been getting. It's just less detailed. It does not have the dual molded legs. Just the same as the Venom car, which I reviewed a little while ago. The build itself is a Spider-Man build. Swap out the Spider-Man emblem and the web, and you can easily turn it into a Captain America or Iron Patriot, whichever you prefer. There is absolutely nothing original about this mech. It's the only cool feature is that on the back it holds where Spider-Man can hold the web, and the web itself is pretty cool. Using this new piece, I'm pretty sure it was introduced the previous year, but I'm not completely sure. It could have been introduced the year it was released. It's the main critique I have with that piece is that, just like what happened with the Miles web piece, it stays in the position that you fold it into if you have it there for too long. For those who have owned a Hot Toys figure, it's exactly what happens when you have a figure with a suit made of fabric lining the outside. When you have it in a position for too long, it creases. And it's just all around not a fun time. This is definitely my least favorite mech, other than the fact that we got Anti-Venom, which just sucks. Fellas, last mech for the video. This is also the most recent one. It was released alongside Spider-Man. What I didn't mention earlier in the video, which I really should have, is that these mech sets release every year on January 1st. They're usually released somewhere around November when we get our modular sets. Back to the review itself. It's an Iron Man minifig. New head mold that can actually open like what we got with War Machine. But other than that, it's just okay. This is the only good set the only good set we've gotten since 2023. Both minifigs have light printing. Bazinga, Lego. You did something right with these sets. The execution is pretty crappy, though. The design of the figure overall doesn't look that good. While you can flip up the faceplate, which is nice to always see, it doesn't look that good. I don't know what it is, but the face just looks off. Ultron here. It's an Ultron fig. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be based off the comics, but I'm not completely sure. This is the first Ultron fig I owned, which is nice. I have nothing to compare it to other than more Iron Man figs, which most of my Iron Man figs I'm not a huge fan of. Tangent aside, though, it's a pretty cool figure. The accessories that they include with him could have gotten more work. I don't know if they have this clear piece in red the same way they do these lasers that he has shooting out of his hands. If they did, though, poor use of parts, not including that. The build itself. It's another Iron Man mech. It's just a worse and worse version of the original. The original was peak. The second one was meh, especially with the color palette, and this one is just straight dog crap. It makes me want to vomit. I hate this mech. I don't even know why I picked it up, other than the fact that I'm trying to complete my set of mechs. It's got the hand cannon, and that's the only thing you need to know about it. It's complete garbage. Do not buy this set. That's all I have to say for the video, fellas. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Bye-bye.